Imagine waking up in a room filled with everything you once thought would make you happy. The newest phone glowing on your nightstand, shelves lined with sleek gadgets, clothes that still smell like the store, a fridge humming with abundance. Yet when you look in the mirror, there's a silence behind your eyes, a quiet, inexplicable void. You have more than most kings of history ever dreamed of, and yet somehow you feel smaller, more restless, more incomplete. This is the great paradox of modern life. The more we gain, the less we seem to be. We've traded simplicity for convenience, depth for speed, and meaning for more. More likes, more noise, more stuff. And buried beneath that avalanche of more lies an ancient question that refuses to die. What if strength isn't in possession, but in letting go? Over 2,000 years ago, a man named Diogenes walked barefoot through the streets of Athens. He owned nothing but a cloak, a stick, and a small bowl, which, legend says, he threw away after watching a child drink water with cupped hands. When Alexander the Great, the most powerful man on earth, visited him and offered to grant him any wish, Diogenes replied simply, "Stand out of my sunlight." In that one moment, that defiant, almost absurd refusal, Diogenes revealed a truth that continues to haunt us. A man who needs nothing cannot be ruled by anyone. What Diogenes understood, and what our hypermodern culture cannot bear to admit, is that simplicity is not weakness. It is not retreat. It is not failure. It is power. A form of power so profound that it terrifies those who depend on distraction and possession to feel alive. We have been taught that success is accumulation, that the measure of a life is its weight in gold, followers, square footage, or status. Yet deep within, there's a quiet rebellion stirring in every soul that feels suffocated by the excess. Minimalism has become trendy, yes, but beneath the hashtags and empty white rooms, the essence of what Diogenes lived still burns. Freedom through detachment. The question that pierces through time is this: what happens when you no longer need the world to approve of you, feed you, entertain you, or define you? What happens when you strip life down to its barest essentials? Food, warmth, air, sunlight, and truth, and realize that everything else is ornamental distraction. It's terrifying, because to live simply is to stand naked before existence itself. No filters, no shields, just you and reality unmediated. It's a kind of existential exposure most people spend their lives avoiding. Yet that is precisely where strength begins, not in the fortress of comfort, but in the vulnerability of authenticity. Diogenes didn't live simply because he couldn't afford more. He lived simply because he refused to be owned by money, reputation, or even desire. His simplicity was an act of rebellion, a declaration of sovereignty over himself. Socrates once said, "He is richest who is content with the least, for contentment is the wealth of nature." That sentiment, radical in its simplicity, cuts to the core of our existential sickness. The more we chase, the more the horizon retreats. The more we fill ourselves with things, the emptier we feel inside. To live simply in Diogenes' way is to reverse that chase, to turn inward and discover the vastness hidden beneath the noise. It is to realize that peace cannot be bought, and that power lies not in how much you can control, but in how much you can release. As the world races faster, each moment more crowded, each ambition louder, the call of simplicity grows bolder. But it demands courage, because simplicity is not passive. It's an active defiance against everything that tries to make you forget who you are. And so we must ask, if Diogenes found strength in a barrel, what might we find in stripping our own lives to their core? Imagine the crowded marketplace of ancient Athens. Merchants shouting, gold coins clinking, philosophers debating, and in the midst of it all, a half-naked man sitting inside a cracked barrel, laughing. That man is Diogenes of Sinope, the philosopher who owned nothing yet terrified everyone. Why? Because Diogenes had achieved something his society, and ours, could barely comprehend. He had nothing to lose. The Athenians were obsessed with prestige, with eloquence, with influence. Just as today's world is obsessed with appearance, achievement, and accumulation. But Diogenes lived as if all that were dust. He begged for food, slept wherever he pleased, and mocked the powerful to their faces. His laughter wasn't madness. It was clarity. He saw through the illusion of ownership. He saw that everything that claims to belong to us actually owns us instead. Possession is a strange form of captivity. Every object we cling to demands attention, maintenance, fear of loss. The car that gleams in your driveway also whispers a quiet anxiety. Don't scratch me. Don't lose me. Don't let me be outdone by your neighbor's newer one. The more we accumulate, the more the world infiltrates our minds. We think we own things, but it is our peace, our focus, our freedom that's been bought and sold. Diogenes understood this intuitively. He called himself a citizen of the world and rejected the material ties that bound others. His life became a statement so radical that it unsettled empires. When Alexander the Great, conqueror of nations, crowned by gods, stood before this ragged philosopher and offered him anything, Diogenes asked only for the sun to be unblocked. That moment cracked history in two. The most powerful man alive was rendered irrelevant before one who needed nothing. And here lies the secret that modern psychology and ancient philosophy converge upon. Dependency creates fear. Simplicity breeds strength. When your happiness depends on fragile externals, wealth, approval, beauty, status, your soul becomes a hostage to circumstance. But when you can look at the world's prizes and feel no hunger for them, you become unconquerable. Yet there's a paradox in Diogenes' freedom. He was not merely rejecting the world. He was redefining what it means to be human within it. To live simply is not to withdraw into bitterness or isolation. It is to reorient one's entire being toward authenticity. It's to say, I will not pretend that false things are real. In his cynicism, which in Greek, kynikos, literally means dog-like, Diogenes sought purity through shamelessness. He imitated the simplicity of animals, living in accordance with nature rather than convention. To many, he appeared insane. To the wise, he was awake. We can feel this awakening in ourselves when we shed the unnecessary. Think of the strange lightness that comes after cleaning a cluttered room or deleting years of digital noise. Each act of reduction is an act of resurrection, a return to clarity, to breath, to silence. The deeper truth Diogenes taught is that freedom cannot coexist with addiction, not only to substances or pleasures, but to recognition, to security, to control. To be free is to stop needing the world to reflect your worth. As philosopher Epictetus would later echo, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. That line captures what Diogenes lived before Stoicism was even named. His life was his argument, raw, uncompromising, luminous. In rejecting the glittering prizes of his civilization, Diogenes revealed their emptiness. In living without comfort, he discovered peace. And in mocking kings, he showed that power built on possession is an illusion trembling before the man who wants nothing. His barrel was not a prison. It was a throne. His raggedness was not poverty. It was sovereignty. And now, centuries later, we must ask ourselves, what have we built our thrones upon, possessions or peace? The true revolution of Diogenes wasn't material, it was psychological. It was a war fought in the invisible landscape of the mind, a place where most of us live as prisoners without ever realizing it. Our world today is saturated with stimulation. Every sound, every screen, every headline competes for the fragile currency of our attention. We scroll, consume, react, yet we rarely see. In this endless noise, simplicity has become almost subversive. To sit in silence without reaching for your phone feels radical. To live without constant consumption feels unnatural. But that discomfort, that trembling quiet when all distractions fade, is where the real self begins to emerge. Diogenes mastered this inner terrain long before psychology named it. He understood that the clutter of possessions mirrors the clutter of thoughts, and that to simplify one's surroundings is to simplify one's consciousness. He lived with almost nothing not because he despised the world, but because he wanted to see it clearly. The less he carried, the more his mind could breathe. Modern neuroscience confirms what Diogenes intuited. The brain's capacity for peace depends on its ability to focus. Each possession, each worry, Each attachment creates a small loop of attention that drains mental energy. Simplicity, therefore, isn't just a moral or philosophical stance, it's a neurological liberation. But to live simply is not to escape the world. It's to pierce through it. Diogenes' simplicity wasn't sterile minimalism or spiritual posturing. It was confrontation, a direct meeting with reality without illusion. He didn't build walls to avoid discomfort. He dissolved the need for comfort altogether. There's a profound psychological shift that happens when we stop defining ourselves by what we own and start defining ourselves by what we can endure. Suddenly, life's storms lose their terror. If your identity doesn't depend on external things, what can the world take from you? Simplicity becomes a shield, not against pain, but against corruption. Because when your peace is not for sale, manipulation loses its power. Advertising, social status, political fear, all the subtle chains that bind the modern psyche, fall apart in the face of someone who says, "I need nothing from you." That statement, terrifying in its self-sufficiency, is the purest form of strength. But simplicity also demands confrontation with the self. When all external noise is stripped away, we are left alone with our own thoughts, our unfiltered desires, regrets, and fears. That's why most people flee from simplicity. It's not the lack of things that frightens us. It's the presence of ourselves. Diogenes faced that solitude without flinching. He embraced his animal nature, his hunger, his mortality, his absurdity. By doing so, he dissolved the false split between body and soul, between need and meaning. He lived as both philosopher and creature, fully human, fully awake. The power of such simplicity is that it creates mental resilience. Without attachment, there is nothing to lose. Without excess, there is nothing to manage. And in that space of freedom, clarity becomes possible. Not the clarity of theory, but of vision. You begin to see the world as it is, not as you've been taught to desire it. As Lao Tzu wrote in the Tao Te Ching, "To know when you have enough is to be rich." This is not an endorsement of poverty, but an invitation to sanity, the recognition that true abundance is the absence of craving. Simplicity clears the fog. It strips away the unnecessary until all that remains is essence. Unadorned, undeniable, real. It reminds us that the mind's power lies not in what it accumulates, but in what it releases. Through this clarity, Diogenes became a mirror for others, reflecting not their wealth or fame, but their hidden dependencies. And in that reflection, the Athenians glimpsed something they feared most: the possibility that the man in the barrel was freer than them all. To live simply as Diogenes did is not merely to own less, it is to be more. It is to strip away every falsehood, every comfort, every compromise that dulls the edge of truth. Simplicity, when lived as an act of conscience, becomes moral courage in its purest form. Imagine Diogenes wandering through Athens with a lantern in broad daylight. People jeered and asked him what he was doing. His answer became legend: "I am looking for an honest man." It wasn't a riddle, it was an indictment. In a world obsessed with appearances, he was searching for authenticity, for someone unafraid to live in accordance with truth, even when it cost them everything. This is where the moral weight of simplicity reveals itself. Because to live simply in a society built on desire is to live against the grain. It means rejecting the moral hypnosis that tells us virtue lies in wealth, comfort, and approval. It's not merely a lifestyle choice, it's a rebellion against corruption. Diogenes understood that the more dependent we are on luxury, the more easily we can be controlled. The man who cannot sleep without silk sheets will obey whoever provides them. But the one who can sleep under the open sky belongs to no master. His freedom is his virtue, and his virtue is his shield. The ancient cynics saw simplicity as a weapon of truth. They refused to flatter, to conform, or to hide their nature. Diogenes lived so transparently that even his flaws were honest. There was no image to maintain, no persona to defend. And that rawness, that refusal to pretend, made him unbreakable. When people called him a dog, he didn't protest. He accepted it. "Yes," he said, "like a dog, I bark at those who give me nothing. I fawn on those who give me something, and I bite those who are unjust. In that self-acceptance was a lesson the world still struggles to learn. Morality isn't about fitting in. It's about remaining true when everything tempts you to betray yourself. Simplicity demands integrity. It asks, can you live without lying to yourself? Can you stop decorating your ego long enough to confront your own hypocrisy? Because once you let go of pretense, what remains isn't emptiness, it's purity. Our age has mistaken moral posturing for virtue. We wear ethics like fashion, performing compassion for applause. But the simple life, the one Diogenes embodied, doesn't seek witnesses. It doesn't need validation. It is moral not because it looks good, but because it is good. There's immense psychological pressure in modern life to conform, to keep up, to appear successful, to curate an identity that pleases others. But every layer of that performance separates us from truth. Simplicity cuts through the performance. It demands honesty in word, in action, in being. In that sense, Diogenes wasn't merely living simply, he was living cleanly. Not in hygiene, but in spirit. A cleanliness that comes from refusing to participate in falsehood. And that is what makes simplicity an act of strength rather than retreat. It takes enormous courage to be free in a world that profits from your enslavement. To say no to excess, to greed, to conformity, is to reclaim your moral sovereignty. As Henry David Thoreau would later write, a man is rich in proportion to the number of things which he can afford to let alone. In that single line lies a moral revolution. Restraint, not indulgence, is the mark of character. The simple person, the one who needs little, who pretends to nothing, becomes unshakable. They cannot be bribed with comfort or frightened with loss. They stand firm not because they possess strength, but because they are strength, distilled, uncompromised, awake. Diogenes' life was his argument, that moral power doesn't come from dominating others, but from mastering oneself. And when the world tempts you with false crowns and shallow victories, simplicity whispers the only victory that matters, self-rule. Next section, the final culmination, how Diogenes' radical simplicity speaks to our modern crisis of meaning, and why living simply today is the most powerful act of resistance. Look around you, the glowing screens, the constant motion, the endless noise. We are surrounded by abundance yet haunted by hunger. Our technology grows smarter while our hearts grow tired. We scroll through thousands of lives every day but rarely touch our own. Beneath all the comfort and convenience, an ancient ache returns. What am I doing all this for? Diogenes asked that question long before the world had smartphones or skyscrapers. He saw, even in ancient Athens, the same disease that poisons our century, the confusion of living with owning, of being someone with appearing as someone. He dismantled that illusion by living so simply that his very existence exposed everyone else's dependence. Today, his message is more urgent than ever. Because our crisis isn't poverty, it's meaning. We've built entire civilizations around consumption, but we've forgotten how to be. The more we chase the symbols of success, the further we drift from the experience of life itself. Diogenes' barrel, once mocked, now feels prophetic, a symbol of liberation from the machinery of excess that devours the soul. To live simply in the 21st century doesn't mean retreating to a cave or renouncing every comfort. It means something deeper. To live intentionally, to filter every possession, habit, and thought through a single question. Does this make me more alive or less? Because simplicity is not minimalism for aesthetics. It's minimalism for survival. The more we declutter our homes, our schedules, our minds, the closer we come to a kind of sacred silence. The same silence Diogenes found beneath the noise of his age. Simplicity is strength precisely because it resists manipulation. A person who can find joy in sunlight cannot be bought. A person who knows how to sit still cannot be seduced by distraction. A person who understands that meaning lies not in more, but in enough, that person cannot be conquered. Our systems thrive on fear, fear of missing out, fear of scarcity, fear of falling behind. But simplicity dismantles that fear by revealing that what we truly need is astonishingly little. Shelter, food, companionship, time, truth. The rest, though glittering, is decoration for the void. To live simply, then, is to take back your life from those who profit from your dissatisfaction. It's an act of rebellion disguised as peace. Yet it's also an act of love. When you live simply, you stop devouring the world. You consume less, harm less, pretend less. You create space for reflection, for connection, for empathy. In that space, strength becomes gentleness, and gentleness becomes wisdom. Diogenes' lesson is not a call to ascetic misery. It's a call to clarity. He wasn't preaching deprivation. He was pointing toward freedom, the kind that can't be engineered or sold. The freedom that comes from needing nothing the world can take away. And maybe that's the ultimate paradox. To live simply is to reclaim the complexity of being human. To feel, to think, to suffer, to wonder, all without hiding behind possessions or status. When we stop cluttering our lives with the unnecessary, we finally make room for the miraculous. As Friedrich Nietzsche wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." Simplicity, then, is about rediscovering the why, the pulse of purpose beneath all the noise. It's about walking lighter, breathing deeper, and daring to be ungoverned by what the world calls success. So perhaps the strongest thing you can do is not to climb higher, but to kneel lower, to empty your hands, to stand in sunlight unarmed, and to realize, as Diogenes did, that the less you need, the more invincible you become. Because in a world built on excess, to live simply is not to step back.